2 of the Tasmanian Improved Production Championship moved back down south to Baskerville. eHome AV Advanced Audio Systems was sponsoring this and all remaining Baskerville rounds this season. A bumper field of 16 IP cars, 1 invited car and a Group N historic touring car would line up for this round. Scott Willing was a welcome return in his Impreza, which featured a new rear diff. Calhoun was hoping to stay clear of Datsuns this round. Kyle Smith had a new sequential gearbox in his Datsun 1200, while Mark Jenkins had a new LS1 engine in his Commodore, replacing the Iron Lion. Hayden Lovell debuted his newly purchased CSV enhanced Commodore, while his red Commodore's engine was being rebuilt. He and Tony Martin now own half of the Commodore IP cars in Tasmania. Leon Duggan was back with a new engine in his Escort. Mystery surrounded this new engine after some expert level trolling in the lead up to the event. Turns out the new motor was a hotter, naturally aspirated 2-litre. With so many cars on the short 2-kilometre Baskerville layout and threatening clouds above, finding some clear air to set a competitive qualifying time was vital. Willing and Matthew Grace were getting a bit racy in qualifying, a preview to what would unfold during the day's races. Richard Manning in the DGA Rent Commodore was having his first run in IP as an invited car and not for points. Willing bounced his way to pole with a 58.29, just 300ths quicker than Grace in his 200SX, now with a side exit exhaust. Only half a second back was Calhoun in the Big Falcon. Next was Manning, who would actually line up 7th due to having several seconds added to his qualifying time for passing under a yellow flag. Howe was next, who had the BMW retuned and had gained an extra 25 kilowatts since round 1. Scott Arthur was next in his VX Commodore, closely followed by Oost, then Lovell. Smith was first of the under 2-litre cars, followed by Duggan. Then came the early model Commodores of Morgan and Jenkins, and narrowly edged out the returning Hussey. Bousted, White and Madigan, all in the under 2-litre category, were next and only separated by 0.3 of a second. The field was rounded out by Darryl Bennett, whose Toyota 86 had a blown coil pack on the dyno just prior to the meeting. He couldn't get a replacement until the Monday after the meeting and switched back to his ever-trusty and reliable Suzuki Swift. Bousted wouldn't start race 1 due to gearbox problems in qualifying. However, he borrowed one from Leon Duggan and went home to change it, ready for the following day's races. The start for race 1 was a bit of a cluster. Normally a red light would come on with the 10-second board, and upon going out would signal the start of the race. However, the red light only came on for a second or so, leading to a confusing start for many of the competitors. Calhoun was flying until the end of lap 2. Unfortunately, he slid the Falcon into the pit straight wall and ground to a halt with a red flag coming out. Amazingly, he set the fastest lap of the race on the lap he slid into the wall. Although a disappointing end to his weekend, the pace he showed on only one flying lap is a positive and will hopefully see the Falcon back out soon. You can see from Calhoun's onboard how easy it was to miss the red light. Calhoun was actually issued a 5-second penalty, while Smith and Duggan were given 10-second penalties for jumping the start. After the clean-up, the race was restarted under the safety car.
okay as far as this particular field is concerned, so we've got
Following their penalties, Smith and Duggan dropped a couple of places, however didn't drop any places in the under 2 litre class. Morgan had dropped a serpentine belt early in the race and retired before it was restarted. His team discovered the tensioner bearing had movement in it, so they refitted the belt and limited revs to 5,000 RPM to see the rest of the weekend out. Race 2 was an absolute cracker, so let's jump straight into it. Qual dropped back with fuel surge. On lap 4, Leon Duggan had an engine failure and pulled off at the end of the main straight.
You change track conditions, sir. You want to honk down there, 9 kilometres per hour.
Duggan's car may have distracted Oost as the diverse quintet of cars raced down the main straight the following lap. In all of the chaos, Manning managed to slip underneath Arthur, with Lovell capitalising on the move and also passing Arthur. Despite just about reaching the neighbouring suburb, Oost managed to get the Datsun back on track, albeit a lap down. In the final lap, Smith had a look on the inside of Arthur, wobbling the Datsun's shopping trolley front end about. Willing took his second win from Grace, who managed to set the fastest lap of the race. Lovell was third in the overs, a great result in his new car. In the unders, Smith led the way from Bousted and Mary White in third. It had been an action-packed opening day for Improved Production Tas. Unfortunately, day 2 started with several cars being heavily damaged in a start line accident before some more great close racing in the later races. Stay tuned for that video, which will be uploaded shortly.